for someone who I know is one of the greatest fans, some of the greatest interviewers and interviews in the world, from Playboy to Vanity Fair, this one is putting me a bit under pressure. You know, my guest today turns 60 this year and has had an almost 4-decade career of the most stunning, legendary success in the Nigerian entertainment industry. Richard Mofe Damijo, the legend, is my guest on With Chude today, and we are talking about a life that so many of us can only hope for, can only wish for, can only pray for. We're talking about the highs, the lows, from starting his career as a journalist to being a commissioner, from being called a gold digger to being known as a legend. I can't wait for the honor of this conversation. Are you tired of interviews? You've been interviewed almost every...
Are we on already?
Yes, we're on already.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah,
Okay.
consistently for at least the past 30 to 35, if not 40 years.
37.
37 years.
I'm not tired of interviews. I'm tired of inane interviews. I'm tired of interviews that are very lazy.
Yeah.
Some people don't even do research.
Yeah.
You know, I'm tired of those ones that will push a mic in front of you and say, "May we meet you?" I'm just so that just offends my sensibilities. You know? But here's how I process it. It comes with the territory, and so it's the process. So I respect the process, and then I just let it go. There's something that we used to say when we were younger as an actor. We say, I'm an actor in search of a director, or I'm an actor in search of the right script or the right play. So 37 years in the business after, I can't get tired of interviews because I'm still looking for the right interview.
Okay, pressure. Pressure. But I do understand that.
Yes.
But is that also, can that also come because fundamentally you were first a journalist on a deep level, and even in not just journalism but also in interviewing, profiling, magazining. Is that part of it? Is that part of it? The fact that you've seen, and also you said in magazines, glosses are all the rave now, but by the time you said doing Mr. and all of that, glosses were not
There was
part
no
of the
gloss.
game.
I was gloss.
Yes, yes. So is that part of why you can see clearly, when when the journalism is not being thoughtfully done?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up reading the Playboy interviews. I mean, those were like the definitive interviews, or Esquire, or the GQ interviews.
Yeah.
And it's just the amount of research that goes into these things. Unfortunately, our people don't, either because of the level of training or what is available, but I don't see a lot of our journalists going beyond self to try and research the subject, enough
Going
to
beyond
be
self.
to be able to get to the soul of the person. Because really, if I agree to an interview, it means I really want to talk. So really, it then depends on how much engagement, or on how much interrogation or provocation or in-depth research that my interviewer has done to touch at the things that will let me, experience, that thing, that catharsis that I'm looking for. Because sometimes you finish the interview and you are like so hungry.
Yeah.
It's like you've just been left high and dry. So.
The pressure keeps piling up. I love it. So so it's okay. But one of the things, I'm going to come back to this subject, but I want to ask something that occurred to me. One of the most, I think, for me, pivotal moments of your evolution was when you returned formally to the entertainment industry, because you never really left. There were things happening in the outer state that had to do with entertainment. But then when you had gone and become a politician and become an official Nigerian big man, the way we see it in the books, and on the highest levels, first you were a special advisor, then you became a commissioner, and then you came back into the industry. And this is a cliche, but it's also true. But you came back as if you didn't leave at all, like as if there was a space waiting. And I thought that was such a class act, because so how smooth will this return be? And there was no obstruction in my mind of, I know he was a commissioner before. It was just like, okay, that was a hiatus, we are back. So 2 questions. Did you think that it was going to be as smooth as it was to just re-enter?
No, not at all. I think it's also an attitudinal thing.
Right.
I didn't leave Delta State to come back with a chip on my shoulder that, oh, look, I'm a big... No, it was like it was done, dusted, and that was it. And I transitioned into what I love to do without asking for handouts, without asking for any special treatment or anything. And so because it is something that I loved, and there was a spiritual dimension to it. When before I left government, I was on a journey, on a weight loss journey.
Right.
And when I walk my 10, 20,000 mile steps a day, that's my prayer time, because it is very personal to me. Right. And now that I'm saying this, for those who see me walking in my estate and anywhere else, when I don't stop to take pictures, this is why. It is my time. It is so personal to me. And so that's when I pray, I talk to God. And I heard today, I heard clearly from God. This is not bullshitting. I heard clearly. Can I say bullshit on this?
You can say it on this show.
This isn't bullshitting. I heard from God, son, your work here is done. By the time I got to Lagos, I had made the mental adjustment. So that whole readjustment and coming back, I'm grateful that it looked like it was easy, but it was work as well. Right. I mean, getting the right script, being in the right company, and I have to just be able to say thank you to Rogers. Of female. Right. Because Rogers came to my house and he said, Papa, you have to do horse show. Right. I'm like, which one is horse again? Gave me the script, I read it. Yes. And the thing with me and a character is, if I see a character as I'm reading it, it doesn't take 2 minutes. It doesn't take 2 minutes. In 2 minutes flat. If I'm not acting it, if I'm not seeing the picture of the character, I'm not doing it. But the minute I read Bem Sanogo in Hush, and I'm like, I found some similarities between him and Segun Kadiri.
Right. Yes.
Some similar. Yes. Sweet guy.
Yes, but mean edge.
Yes. So I said, okay, you know what? I'll drop the voice down a little bit, but not as much as Segun Kadiri. Yeah. And then I went to Unilag to do law. In the process, acting started stopping a little bit. And then when you go for the 1 year,
of law school,
you stop
everything.
Yes. I finished that, got called in 2005. Yeah. I started Whitewater Solicitors. Yes. Doing work in the legal area. Yes. So I wasn't really working.
Yes.
Doing,
movies.
Movies. So it's a lot more than 8 years.
Yes.
You know, but you know, where the whole God thing comes in is that whilst I was in Asaba, most people don't remember this. When I was in Asaba, I think a year or so before my tenure ended, Rogers Ofime came to me and said, there is a film called Olebiri
Yes.
that we want you to do.
Yes.
And I'm like, Rogers,
Yes.
okay, but thankfully, I was already on the weight loss thing.
Right.
So when he came, I said, but Rogers, I can't do that. I'm a commissioner here. I can't tell my governor,
That I'm going
you
to-
know, that I'm going to go and do a film. So they said, but the film has some
Niger-
presidential connection and Niger Delta thing.
Yeah.
So I told my guy, I said, Excellency, they want me to come and do a film. And he's like, okay. He didn't really like object. So they pulled their strings. Somehow, the presidency called or something.
Right.
And my guy calls me a few days later and say, why you not tell me, say, go do your film? You know, so I went off to Loibiri, I went and we did the film.
You know, when I was coming out of school, two kinds of coverage you were getting. One was about your work as an actor, you know, in front. The second was constantly about your marriage, you know. And I remember that so I want to talk about that. And the story was always, this younger man who married this older woman. And some of it was truly vicious. And I remember as a child, because I was a very voracious leader in my childhood, I could think there's so much envy in this coverage, as if it was former colleagues who felt, how did he get this lucky? And we have to cut him down to size. Was that it? I mean,
they will have to answer that. What people don't understand, the fear. And from fear, the resent. I won't mention names. When I was starting Mr. Magazine, I went to an agency to make a presentation. And I started, it was in a board meeting, the boardroom. Not many gave me any chance. You know, I dressed up, you know. I went in there, did my presentation. As I was going on, a few people came in and then they stopped, they were looking at me. And I just noticed that the boardroom kept filling up. And after a while I said, I'll pause here. If there are questions, I'll be glad to take. And everybody was quiet. They looked at me. And one of them, famous, one of them now said, I owe you an apology. Young man, I owe you an apology. I was one of those who didn't like, you know. I get it, you know. Because, hey, I'm a worry boy. I came into this town. All I wanted to do was act. That's all. Teach, get a teaching job somewhere. Teach, close at 2 o'clock. From there, I hustle my life, you know, and that was all I wanted. And I met a beautiful woman a few years later, 3 years older than me. We got married, and not in the age of social media, in the age of Soft Cell magazine.
Yes.
And she too was a queen,
Yes, with
you know,
classic.
just that on a different level.
Yeah.
And they just wouldn't understand, they just couldn't understand. And you know, it was ironic. I'll say it here. I mean, you see it in my book later at some point. She says to me, if you would not be afraid of the stares of older colleagues and all that, it's so, that note was so futuristic. If you won't be afraid of, if you're not going to be afraid of stares of colleagues, senior colleagues and all that, come be my date to, I think it was an occasion at night shift at the time.
Right.
And I'm like, they've not given birth to the man that will make me feel inferior in this world. You know, anyway. So we went and had a good time and went out again over a few, and then we started dating, and then incidentally, after a while, we got married.
Yeah.
So there were people who didn't understand what I was all about. And then, you know, words like gold digger has been used for me.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
there was a time that I said to, I think it was in some interview, and I said, please, can we pause for a minute? How much did an editor in Quality magazine used to make on a monthly basis? She was an employee of Newswatch or whatever. Yes. What is the highest amount of money a journalist can make? You know, and so then you can tell me the gold
that you are digging for.
that I'm digging for. If I want to dig gold, I have to go and marry a journalist. Come on now, you know. So I have a cousin who will say to me, "You just have a good heart. You should be vindictive." And I'm like, what's the point? Abiola said something to me. MK Abiola said something shortly before we got married. And he says to me, I said we should go and see him in the morning. He wanted to give us money. And he said to me, "So how are you coping? How are you coping? You know, with all this noise and everything." I said, Chief, it's very hard. You know, and he says, "But, you know, it is better that they wake up in the morning, they are searching the papers to see what else you have done. You know, don't be one of those who go and search paper and see what others are doing. So make sure you give them stuff to think about every day." So again, my late wife's mantra was something that Delegiwa taught her. And it is, living well is the best revenge. So that has always also been mine. You just live your life. So that every time they look at you, you are too real to be true. You are, I have had, they look at me and they're like, there must be something that we don't know
about him. Yes.
And I'm like, my life is an open book. Yes.
What was the thing that was, I want to share, what is the thing that was going through your mind when you decided you're going to drop everything and go and do law?
It started first as, you know, there's a joke in Warri that every Urhobo man, every Urhobo family must have a lawyer. Law has always dogged me. Like my mom, as an only child, my mom wanted me to be a lawyer since I wasn't in the sciences. But I just thought it wasn't for me. And then tragedy struck in '96. I lost my wife. And part of the way people were like, you have to get to work, you know. So one of the things I did then was to also like just throw myself into a lot of work. And then that was when it made sense to revisit the law thing. And then I went, by the time we were doing law then, you needed to do exam. So I went to Unilag and did the exam.
Right.
Yes, we were lots and lots of people. And they were only going to take 90-something, and we were over 300 or more. So you do the exam. Yes. You know? So I did the exams, and when the names came out, somebody called me and said, your name there, you know. So I went, and that was it, you know.
So I want to end by asking this, you know, so you're 60 this year, which is why...
July 6.
July 6, yes.
July 6.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes, that's why I thought I had to do this interview. You know, when you look back, you've had a blast of a life. You know, I'm like, there are people whose lives I look at, I'm like, that's a life well lived. Yeah, you've done, you know, I don't want to sound like a cliche, but it's a cliche. You've done it all, you know, and you are still in the thick of it. You know, you've walked into MK Abiola's house in the morning to just have random conversations about tabloids. You started the magazine tradition. You know, we're at the forefront of the soap opera, you know, eras. You have been in government, you know, you've practiced law, you've produced movies, you've produced events, you've acted. You were even a singer with Ade Ogido in OGD music. Then you have then, you know, so when you are saying, you don't know why people want to cut you down, I can see why people want to cut you down.
They don't do.
They don't do. And then in all of it, you know, you seem, the snatches you show us, it seems, and nobody can even know what happens in the family. Like even on a personal level, you're working on that, and there's, your boys, when we see snips and pieces. So it looks like you've had a blast, When you look back at that life, do you think, does it surprise you? Did you, when your life was starting, when you were coming to Lagos and just wanted to be, like you said, a class teacher, just hustling, could you have foreseen, not success, I'm not talking about success, I'm talking about badassery. I'm talking about just having fun. Also, could you have foreseen it when you came in? And when you look back, what do you think of it?
Look, it's hard to put it in words. I'll close in a particular way that it's not a downer, but right. It's a cause for celebration. Right. I didn't see all of it. All I said to my mom, standing before her, she's crying. My uncle has said to her, why am I not reading law? He's your only child. Why is he not reading law? All I could say to my mom was an illiterate. And I said to her, Mama, don't worry. You go see me for television. I knew I wanted to be in that box. That's all I wanted to be. How great it would be, or whether I was going to have a blast or badassery, to use your term. There was no way I could have seen that. And I'm super grateful and thankful for that. Now here's the clincher, and I'm close with this. None of my parents lived to be 60. So life for me is just about to get started. There's been a specter of death around my life. That is what I've been dealing with this year, last year to this year. When I turned 59, it was a big deal for me. Big deal for me. My mom died at 59. My father died at 57, 58. So it was like, can I break it? Can I break it? When people see me, I go on a weight loss, and people think that it's health. It's more, look, both my parents were diabetic and hypertensive. Look, I don't want to be that. I don't want to be diabetic and hypertensive. I want to be healthier. At least give myself a fighting chance to change that whole cycle. Yes, I'm a Christian now, so I've broken that yoke and all that, but I have to also help myself. So becoming 60 for me is even a bigger deal. So when July comes and I become 60, it's like, how the Bible says that, all things are passed away. I would truly, truly become a new man. Because for me, all the things that, that is when I will make a bucket list. So all these things that you think I have achieved and done, for me, it's nothing, like zero. My biggest accomplishment for me is my family. So I'm going to now sit down when I'm 60 and do a bucket list. And I will start. Yes.
That interview has to end there. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I had a blast having this conversation. I knew I was going to, but thank you so much for speaking to me. What I learned from this conversation with RMD on the 60th anniversary of his birth, such a fascinating life, is this: humility doesn't kill. Doesn't. I started my career as a 15-year-old production assistant on the Nigerian Television Authority in the 2000s. And I met so many people. I met celebrities who are still huge today, who flung my book on me. I had people who called me a bastard. I had people who said all kinds of things. And then I had RMD, who showed me just an act of just kindness, just niceness, just decency. And he is still as huge or even bigger a success today than he was 21 years ago. Now, this is what happens. People always say, be humble so you can succeed. I'm like, that's a lie. All kinds of people succeed. Arrogant people succeed. Wicked people succeed. Terrible people succeed. Kind, nice people. Everybody succeeds. I believe that the things that lead to success, talent, hard work, a sense of vision. I don't think that humility for the sake of success is why. I think that humility for its own sake, just to be nice to other people, to be kind to other people, to be decent to other people, it will not destroy your career. It will not make you less of a human being than you are. It will not make you weak or vulnerable. But, like RMD said, it just might lift the spirit of a 15, 16, 17-year-old walking down the streets of Tejo Show one Wednesday morning and thinking to himself or herself, I am a human being and I deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. That is what I learned from RMD's incredible